He said, 50-50. I said, what do you mean 50-50? He said, well, there's about a 14-mile long, huge lake under the ground, about 3,000 feet deep. And the water comes from the mountains on the east side of Arizona and comes in underground rivers. And then it fills up, and when it fills up, it overflows under the water, under the ground, to Phoenix and to Scottsdale. And we're right on the edge. You're just a little bit outside, or you're a little bit inside, and I can't tell. And it's about 4 miles wide and 14 miles long. So it's a risk. You're on the edge. And I didn't own any land where that was, and I didn't have any money to buy any. So I said, okay, we'll try. Well, I didn't have the money to buy or rent a rotary rig. Those are the modern things they use today. And they had the old cable tool rigs that were in the junkyards from World War I. We got one out of the junkyard. We fixed it up, found a couple of old guys that were retired. One of them was named Jonesy. He was from the South, and he called me Jerry. Jerry. That ain't the way we're doing it, Jerry. We're doing it his way. And I said, okay. And we set up this old rig, and he said, Jerry, if we're going to do this, you got to be here day and night. Because in the nighttime, people come out here and they'll steal all the equipment, and they steal the tools, and they'll steal some of the parts we got. So, okay, so I went down to, they had what was called Sears and Roebuck then, and I bought a knapsack or a sleeping bag, and that you could carry on your back. And I slept by the rig for over 2.5 months. My wife, we had our first little baby boy. She went and lived with her sister in California, and I lived by the well. And we drilled every day. And we had to rent a truck, a little tiny truck with a water tank on it, and bring it down from Carefree and dump water down the hole. And then the tool made a milkshake down there. You take it out, and then you drop a baler in with a trapdoor, and it haul the mud out, and you drop it, and the mud's there, and the casing falls into the little cavern you made. And you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again. So after about, 2.5 months, we got down, and I said, Jerry, we're down here over 3,500 feet, and ain't no water here. I said, well, we better call. The nearest telephone was 10 miles away on a phone pole because they hadn't invented cell phones. They didn't exist. So we went down to the power pole and dialed, put in a dime, dialed. And I called Paul Monera. I said, we're down over 3,000 feet. We're down 3,500, and there's no water. So we're outside, right? He said, no, let me check. Long, long wait. He says, no, it's 4,500 feet. I forgot to carry the one. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, I'm adding up the zones of sand and gravel and rock and this, and I got all these zones, and I didn't carry the one. So we're going to go back up, and across from the telephone was a small bank, a Bank of Arizona. And we went in, and Jonesy said, Jerry, I got cash a check here. I got check. I could get some money. I said, okay. Went in, and I watched him, and he went up there, and he put a mark, and he handed in. They gave him the money. I said, Jonesy, what's that mark there? Jerry, I never got around to no reading and no writing. That's my mark. It's your mark? Yeah, I can't do those letter things. I just put the X, that's me. I said, that's it? Yeah, it works. I thought to myself, I got a guy who can't read and write. I got a guy who can't add. I'm living in the desert. I'm sleeping out in the desert at night. What is wrong with me? But we got down to almost 4,500 feet, and Johnny's going, oh, Jerry, there's water down here. There's water. I said, that's 4,500 feet of cable? What are you talking about? You can't tell. Jerry, I don't know much, Jerry, but I can feel the water. Oh yeah, I'll fill the water here. I didn't believe it. He came up, we bailed it out, dumped it out of the well, and we dropped down the bailer again and we pulled it and full up again. He was right. We had water. So we drilled down another 300-400 feet because we're drilling into the water supply. And I said, stop, it's costing us almost $35 a foot or something like that. That was a lot of money. And so we stopped. We had a rental company that came and put a diesel engine and a pump, went all the way down. And that first well was very small because we didn't have the money to have a big, we couldn't afford a big casing. And we got about 300 gallons a minute. Well, a half a gallon a minute will supply a home. Because you put it into a storage tank and build it up over 24 hours a day, but lawns and demand and the gardening and the home units, it takes about a half a gallon a day, rough numbers. So we had enough for 600 homes. Woo! I thought, wow. Well, long story short, over the years, we did very well. And what I found out is that I had 160 acres, and we were drilling on the edge of it. In 48 hours, the property value went up 400%. I bought it for $1,100 an acre, and it was worth almost $5,000 an acre. And I began selling lots, because Maricopa County, I wasn't in the city, let me design the roads myself, put it all in, we put in all the improvements, and we sold the lots for about $10,000. And we paid for the land $1,100, but we had to pay for the improvements. But we made a lot of money. I thought, oh my God. And so Jonesy, who can't read and write, said, Jerry, you got all the land you want? I said, no. He said, well, don't you think we better stop hauling this water? This was at the beginning. Nobody knew. And I said, why? That cost us $50 to haul the water from Carefree and dump it down this hole little at a time, and then send the truck every day to go get more water. I could save $50 a day. Jerry, you stop hauling that truck, everybody come around here, and they're going to say, how much water you got? And all the land value is going to go up everywhere. I said, yeah, that's right. He said, you better keep this truck going. And you get options. I said, what do you mean options? He can't read and write. There's option, you pay him $1,000, and you get 12 months to buy the land at the higher price, which is 25% of what it's worth. And you got a year to buy it and find the money. I said, oh yeah, great. So here's a guy who can't read and write teaching me the land business. And we did that. And we ended up with about 650, 700 acres on options. And we ended up buying them all. And then we put them into the water company. And a private water company, you don't have to include anybody's land but your own, unless you want to. It's crazy, but that's the law in Arizona.
What happened the first day the water truck didn't come?
What's that?
What happened the first day the water truck didn't come?
Oh, the first day the water didn't, cars came from everywhere. Way out in the desert, nowhere. Cars came from everywhere. How much water you got? How much water you got? Jonesy was absolutely right. People watch that truck go by every day. They haven't got any water there. That well's not going to be any good.
Negative people.
What? But anyway, it changed my life. And I prayed about it. I was so grateful, and I decided I want to give back to the community. I want to take care of my kids and prepare for their money for college and build a nice house. And then I started reinvesting in more land and more land. And I met the Japanese wanted to do another one. They made a lot of money. And because they got interest on their money too. And so I said, well, there's a big piece of land, almost 1,000 acres, and we could build a nice country club, very nice homes on this. It'd be really big and nice. So they said, okay, we'll finance it. So I didn't have to put up any money, but I got 50% of the profits. And I had a financier that charged 3% interest. And they trusted me. And eventually, we used to have an outfit, I don't know if they still exist, it was called Arthur Anderson. They were out of New York City. And they look into everything, they look at the bills, and they take care of the checks. And they're a commercial firm that handles finances. And they said, Jerry, we're paying over $400,000 a year for this Arthur Anderson company. Well, I said, it's all your money. You need to, no, let's get rid of them. You keep it. I said, you want me to do it? I said, yes, you keep track of the money. Trust. They trusted me. And I wouldn't betray that trust for anything. So we got ready to build the golf course, and it was really beautiful near Pinnacle Peak. And now it was in the unincorporated colony, but it became Scottsdale. And they said, I'm not talking too long here. And they said, I got a pro golfer, never designed a course, and his name was Tom Weiskopf. And I gave him his first job. And we built the course, and he said, I said, I'm searching for a name. Instead of Mountain this or Arizona that, or I don't know. He said, why don't you call it Troon Golf and Country Club? I said, Troon? What's Troon? I never played a game of golf in my life, still haven't. And he said, well, that's a famous course in Scotland that I won my first international championship. So I went home to Florence, and I said, what do you think of this weird name, Troon? She said, I think it's nice. So I went back and said, okay. And we built Troon Golf and Country Club in Troon Village. We went on to do Troon North with 36 holes with Tom. And then Troon Management, where we managed eventually 120 golf courses. I ended up selling that to Goldman Sachs. They're an outfit out of New York. Anyway.
Hey? Let me do this.
What?
Let me get this. So Jerry started off with the story of Brother Paulie asking Jerry, have you ever made a difference?
And I made it, yeah. I was a loser, and he was right. I was a loser.
Can you imagine, by the way, hearing this stuff when you're 18, 19, or 20 years old? You know, and this is, you don't get this. You don't read this in a book. This doesn't exist except in here. So 3 years ago, I was down here, or was it 2 years? 2 or 3 years ago, I was down here for New Year's. And I met a guy, 22-year-old kid. His name's Kyle. And he had come through the American Leadership Academy that Jerry started to train tomorrow's leaders today, to give back, to make a difference. And Jerry had seen this kid kind of off on his own at one of our leadership summits, and we have 100 and some kids down here. And so Jerry started asking some questions to him, and he was dodging Jerry's questions. Well, it turns out Jerry talked to the chapter advisor and found out that this kid joined the fraternity up at Washington, University of Washington, and he was living in his house. He was living in his car before he joined.
For a year.
Both of his parents were in jail.
Yep.
Okay.
Professional criminals.
And Jerry invited this kid back for Thanksgiving. He said, where are you going to be?
He didn't have any place to go.
Well, you tell the story.
Well, he didn't have any place to go, but he was hiding it. He was embarrassed. He didn't want anybody to know. And I said, well, where are you going to have Thanksgiving? Where are you going to have Christmas? He said, I'll be at the chapter house. I'll be okay. I said, no, you've got to be. And he wouldn't tell me about his family, because his mother was in one prison, his father was in another prison. They were professional criminals. They'd been in and out of prison for years. And so I said, I talked to Florence. I said, let's invite him to join us with our sons and friends and families. So she said, sure. And we invited him. And he came. And it changed his life. And I heard some things that I'm not going to tell you, but they were horrible, that he went through as a 10-year-old. But out of that, he became a passionate and committed student, businessman, Christian. He embraced the Lord's forgiveness for what he didn't have in life, and embraced what he felt in faith he could develop. and doing his life.
And every Thanksgiving and every Christmas, he's celebrating in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, the kid that was living in his car. And this last year, I saw pictures on Facebook from him over in Spain, where Jerry was chaperoning him around Spain. Okay? And you talk about making a difference, and that, to me, is the story of the American Leadership Academy. Right there. That one kid, and Jerry's completely changed his life. When he graduated, I think this last year, Jerry got him a job in California, and now he's working for one of the top realtors in the entire country. Yep. He's the right-hand man, and he's a realtor in training from one of the top guys, another fraternity brother. Yep. And that's the American Leadership Academy. This is Cabomonium, and this is Jerry Nelson.
Put in your heart, you have an asset. Every one of you has an asset. And be careful how much you have. You don't know. But you have an asset, and be careful how you use it. Time. Be careful how you use your time. Don't waste it. And when you're with somebody you love and you're sharing a meal and a time together, that's not a waste of time. But you know what the waste of time is. Don't waste time. Be careful, you don't know how much you've got. And use it, and it becomes a habit. Every one of us are creatures of habit. Something we do over and over and over. Like every one of you chewed with your mouth closed today. I learned it here. And you didn't even know you were doing it. It's a habit. Be careful of the habits you develop.
In a sort of a barehanded fuse welding process, I will now attempt to recombine and reassemble the hopelessly shredded pieces of the newspaper, well, until they're exactly as they were before. That's it. That's all you got. Do you see this every day? Now, wait a minute. Is this even possible to do? Some of you are looking up here like, yeah. Mike's looking up there. I just saw it with my own 2 ears. It's like, how in the heck? How do you suppose that Brad Barton would answer his own question? Is this even possible to do? My answer, of course, would be yes. Actually, my answer is kind of subtle. My answer is, not that I'm aware. Now, I am open to the possibility that such a thing can be done, because I think that open to the possibility is a pretty great place to be. But I'm also a fair expert on the subject, and I doubt it. You see, many years ago, near Seattle, Washington, I once saw a magician, Andrew Bennett, perform this very illusion. It was at the SeaTac Hilton Ballroom, a Boeing function, as I recall. And folks, I was so freaked out by what I thought I saw him do that day. I'm sitting in the audience like a teenager. Shut up! I decided I needed to learn how to do this trick. I searched for the next 3 years for a way to make it happen. I finally gave it up as impossible. I reverted instead to trickery. And that, right there, that's the torn and restored newspaper. How'd I do? Awesome. Good. All right. How many of you done got sucked into my illusion? Raise your hand and say, yes. Yes. Did you think you saw it tear? Yes. How many of you thought you heard it tear? Yes. Were you so sucked in you thought you saw separate pieces floating to the ground? Yes. Okay, one more time. I'm going to invite you to nod your head silently if you're at least open to the possibility that it didn't happen. Jay's back there going, shut up. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the disillusionist. Maybe cutting corners is one of those illusions. But if I do that, I can have a little bit better bottom line. They'll never know, right? And then you break the rule, you break the integrity rule, and do you get away with it the first time? Maybe. If you're good enough, maybe even for sure, maybe. But if you continue down the road, what happens to your credibility? What happens to your personal feelings about yourself and how that manifests into your life? Ladies, gentlemen, there's a lot of illusions out there, folks. Lots. Now, there's a term that, well, It's a computer term. We've created a computer term called defaults. How many of you like default settings? On your, how many of you hate default settings on your? Are defaults good or are they bad? Bad, right? If it's wrong, boy, it's really frustrating. You gotta hire people like Victor, because Victor did a nice job trying to get some of the audio stuff ready for me. You gotta hire someone in to fix it. But imagine having to reconfigure the dang thing and every time you pick it up. Would that be a little aggravating too? Defaults aren't good or bad, they're just powerful. Ladies, gentlemen, the human brain is the fastest working, coolest running, most compact and efficient computer mechanism ever produced in large quantities by unskilled labor. Did you know that? We've got this marvelous piece of hardware right here. Like scientists are trying to figure this out. Which is more complex, the universe or the human brain? And there's debate. Okay, so there's an incredible piece of hardware, this computer. What about the software written over the top of it? What about the software? Were there some defaults? I mean, incredible stories right here. Were there some defaults that Jerry brought in to that massive home that day? Right? After just a few minutes, this very, very wise man discovered the defaults, right? He was opening up the code inside there. And he saw, oh, guess what I see as defaults? Loser, what does he say? Loser, right? You're a loser. Yep. Now, he wasn't saying you're going to be a loser and you're destined to be a loser. I didn't hear that part, Jerry. What I heard is your default right now is loser. Yes? Yes. And then he said, I love this. He says, this is a default, folks. You're an expert on what you don't know, don't have, and can't do. Wow, that is powerful. How many of you are an expert right now on those three things? Yeah, I got my hand up, right? Because I am. I've still got some really negative defaults in my head. What if we looked at it that way? What if we just, when you start to feel some judgment coming in, okay, that's a really powerful story that was told this morning, right? About the fellow that ran out into the street. You know, he lost another baby, and he got his default reset right there, didn't he? Didn't he? He says, I will never judge. It was just changing out the program. One-shot conditioning. It was so powerful that it was one shot, and for the rest of his life, he doesn't judge. Imagine how your life would be blessed if you had that experience. It's a familial thing, isn't it? My dad's drug of choice was rage. He was a rageaholic and a workaholic. Didn't have this work-life balance we talked about. So here I was growing up to the system. I'm lazy and I'm worthless. That's what my dad's teaching me the defaults with a black leather belt, another implement that's handy. And I'm telling this story in front of Gerard. I mean, sorry, it's the only one I got. Okay, there's people in this room that had it way worse than I did. Way worse. I got to elementary school and I was the shortest kid in the school. They called me Shorty, Shorty. And the curliest hair, they called me Curly, Curly. I was a skinny little dude too. Guess what they called me?
Skinny, skinny?
No. They called me Chicken Bones. Yeah, and they laugh. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that, Mike. Okay, so I'm lazy, worthless, funny looking, and now I'm stupid as well. Because the second grade teacher realized that I have a learning disability called Lixdexia. They're still laughing at me. What? Why you laugh? 2s and 5s look the same to me. E's and 3s, 9s and P's, little B's and little D's. I still mess that one up sometimes. One of my best friends still calls me Brab. I signed a note to him one time and I misspelled my own name. I was 30 years old at the time. Okay, dyslexia is not something you grow out of. It's something you just kind of learn how to deal with. See, it was a default. You are learning disabled. You're learning broken. Imagine the disability wasn't that I had some learning disabilities. The disability is that I was disabled. God, what a label to put on, because I found out years later they weren't even right. I found out in college that dyslexia is not a learning disability, it's a learning difference. This is a different way to look at the world. I got a hunch that there's a whole bunch of really creative, really imaginative, good storytelling, high-achieving people that are dyslexic in this room today. How many of you can identify that I are one? Folks, and some of you don't know because you didn't get through enough school to figure it out. And you're amazing. You're amazing. So here I'm growing up the system. I'm lazy, worthy, funny looking, and I'm stupid. Middle school, the teasing it better or worse? A lot. Step off the bus the very first day in high school, brand new backpack on, new jeans. I'm in high school now. In my glory, 4'9". I weighed 82 pounds in high school. And that's what the nice ones are doing. They're just looking back going, oh, poor kid. The really mean ones are walking me down, poking me in the back. What is it? Some funny joke. So I got nothing. I'm getting beat up at home, get emotionally abused at school. I got nothing except a bunch of really terrible defaults. And that's when I decided to become an athlete. All 4'9" and 82 pounds. I went off for the obvious sport, which was, it wasn't football. They're still mocking me. No. They used me for the football. Because I went out for the wrestling team. Two main problems, my wrestling aspirations. Problem number one, the lowest weight class in Idaho, 98 pounds. By that time in the season, I'd bulked up to 83 pounds. Guys, that's 4 weight classes below the lowest weight class. Problem number two, the returning state champion at the lowest weight class, 98 pounds in Idaho that year, was my best friend, Kip French. They spoke his name in hushed tones because Kip French was an animal. He's virtually undefeatable. He's incredible. He'd rip my limbs off during workout, hand and back bloody after, hug me and say, "You're my best friend, Brad." I was scared of my friend Kip. Now this is a little teeny tiny town of Salmon, Idaho. Has anyone ever heard of this place? Didn't? Oh, we have one person that's heard of Salmon, Idaho. We didn't have any little guys on the team. I got the job by default at 105. And thank you very much. I did win 2 matches by forfeit. See, that's where my contribution would have ended my freshman year, except this amazing thing happened to me. After just a couple weeks of working out, the head wrestling coach sent everyone to the locker room, says, "Mr. Barton, I need to see you." And it was just him, and it was just me in that wrestling room that night. And he's walking back and forth and just staring at me. Oh, and he looks angry. He looks like he's working himself up to it. And I don't know how long it was, long enough to make me feel really nervous. And then just like my dad used to, please forgive, he came up, stuck his finger in my face, and he said, "You, I will make a champion." I'm looking at Artemis looking at me, and I'm like, He said, "Champions are born and then unmade. You've been unmade somehow, young man, but you and me, we're going to make you again into a champion." I found out years later he stole that line from a Nike sneaker commercial. I didn't know about that. I just knew when he said that, I'm like, okay, sign me up, coach. I want to be one of those champion guys. I mean, I want that. I don't know what it meant, but I want it. Something deep inside just kind of woke up. He says, "Brad, I'm going to teach you a lot of great things about wrestling. You need to learn a lot of great things about wrestling. You're not very good at this." I said, "I know, coach. But I'm going to teach you way more important things about life." "I'm listening, coach. I want to be a champion." He says, "Brad, there's a difference. There is always a difference. Often an enormous difference between the way that you see something and the way that thing really is." Is he speaking the truth in love right here? Yes? We can reprogram that or repurpose that statement for people too. Customers. Maybe that little punk that you just hired at 18 and you're having a scotch with them. Okay, 21, and you're having a scotch with them and they're losers. There is a difference. There is always a difference between the way you see a person and the way that person really is. Right? Yep. What if, folks? I don't know if this is just right to illustrate what he was trying to teach me that day. But let's give it a try. Folks, I have a short rope, a medium-sized one, and one that's relatively, yeah, this is a long one, right? And what he told me that day, he says, "Brad, the things that